Here's Brody Brazil.
You know, when it comes down to framing up a sports story or perspective or scenario, few do it as well as Bob Costas, right? And I don't even really need to explain this, but he's legendary at what he does. Storytelling, explaining, packaging things together. He not only has the right words to describe things, but he just always has the right perspectives and history and knowledge to really, again, frame everything up so beautifully. And so that's why when I saw him on Foul Territory with Scott Braun, and Scott asked him about the A's situation, I was very excited and interested to hear what Bob Costas would have to say. But I was also a bit cautious because Bob is obviously an employee of MLB Network who is very much tied to Major League Baseball and its owners and their perspectives and their unanimous vote to let the A's relocate to Las Vegas. In fact, there Bob is in their studios doing this talkback interview on Foul Territory. So we'll let it play out here. I'll stop it a few times along the way, but let's listen to what Bob Costas has to say.
Hey, Bob, I want to switch topics here. It's actually related to my shirt, the color green. So, we covered the Oakland A's throughout this season. I mean, it's a historic franchise. It's had some really good years. What's your take on what's going down there where, we're leaving a city behind, probably not going to ever have a baseball team in the near future there again?
Which, Scott is so correct there. It hurts to hear. He's honest. He's accurate. And by the way, I do appreciate Scott. If you see this, you in Foul Territory have continued to cover this A's situation more than I expected, more than I think most would have imagined, and the spotlight on this scenario is very much appreciated.
On the Major League side, I know in the Bay Area you have San Francisco. But what's your take on what went down there, really from top to bottom? Because we do want the game to grow in major markets, diverse markets. And Vegas is great. We've never been against going to Vegas, pretty much consensus on the show.
And that's a great point as well, too. Even in my conversations and thoughts on this YouTube channel, Las Vegas is in question because of the way it's being spelled out here. It's not to say that Vegas isn't capable of Major League Baseball under different circumstances, but under what's been spelled out here, that's what brings up the question.
But it just sucks to pull the sport out of a spot that can certainly field a team.
Well said.
I just got a book in the mail the other day. I haven't read it yet, by a longtime Bay Area sports writer named Dave Newhouse. And the title of the book is Goodbye, Oakland. And it's not just the A's. This is less impactful, but it's the Warriors going from Oakland across the bay to San Francisco for an arena that's near where the Giants play. And it's the Raiders jerking Oakland around not once, not twice, but 3 different times. And now it's the A's, who are about to become, as an aside, the first team ever to have the same name in 4 different cities.
Man, I had never thought about that. And he's right. There is the 4-city thing, but usually a team might change their name along the way.
The Braves were in Boston, Milwaukee, and Atlanta as the Braves.
Okay.
But now, if the A's do this, as appears on the verge of happening.
Which is also crazy that it's still in question. It's been approved, but still in question.
Philadelphia A's, Kansas City A's, Oakland A's, and now Vegas A's. Vegas is a glamorous market and has certain advantages, but it's a much smaller market than Oakland.
And that's an important fact. There Bob is from the national perspective, picking up on that.
I'm not an expert on all the ins and outs of this, but Rob Manfred contends that they have done everything they can, and the city and region just hasn't stepped up.
Okay, at this point, that seems like a talking point. That seems like a copy and paste, I'll read what you tell me to say type thing. It seems like he's going down that road right here.
With a viable and sustainable offer, and they've had plenty of time to do it. That's baseball's version.
Okay, that's baseball's version. So he's said what he needed to say, and now maybe here's his true thoughts.
I'm not dodging the question. I'm just not well enough informed to argue both sides of it. But the bottom line, I completely agree with. Their loyal fans have been screwed here.
That's pretty straightforward. He's talking about the Oakland fans.
The team used to be, in the relatively recent past, under Billy Beane and Moneyball principles, they took limited resources and they had a good team and they got into the postseason. Now they have a crappy team.
I mean, not untrue, but that's also very straightforward.
They obviously have tanked the last couple of years.
Tanked the last couple of years. I mean, you talk about losing. Tanking sounds intentional.
The ballpark's the worst in the majors, a complete dump.
Coliseum is the last dive bar. I would contend that Tropicana Field is the worst in baseball, but he's saying it's the Coliseum. Okay.
And yet there's still some loyal fans, and now they're going to find that the team thumbs their nose at it again. This is not what you want. You don't want that kind of relationship with a single fan base, because fans elsewhere, even if their team is well off and not going to go anywhere, fans elsewhere look at it and say, yeah, that's not right.
And I've never really thought about it. And again, this is interesting from the national perspective, is that it kind of paints a bad picture among baseball fans across the country and across the world. You don't want to have this tension, this relationship existing anywhere, because everybody draws their attention to it. Everybody can see it, and it just does not reflect well on baseball as a business or as a community, kind of what the A's situation has become.
How would you have handled it if you were John Fisher, if you owned the Oakland A's? How would you have pushed this organization in a direction to treat the fans correctly, to put a solid team on the field, and to use your words, not tank? How would you have handled it if you were in John Fisher's shoes?
You know, again, Eric, without knowing all the particulars, so I don't want to step in something where I've got my understanding of the situation incorrect.
There's a lot of prefacing here, right? And I don't blame Bob, and that's a veteran broadcast move, and just to say that I'm speaking on what I understand, and it's possible I may not understand everything. Again, figures at the national level, they're busy covering a multitude of stories. They've got their finger on the pulse of a lot of different things, so it's really hard for them to feel like they're an expert on any one thing regionally or locally, like in this case, the A's situation. So I kind of respect that, but he's obviously treading carefully here despite some pretty strong words.
Tanking is never a good thing if the idea is to set the thing up so you can move. The Rams did that in St. Louis.
And you know what? Of all the comparisons that have been drawn here to the A's and what's happening, and I've heard different stories and movies and this and that, but here's a new one. I mean, the Rams situation in St. Louis, I've yet to really hear the direct correlation between that and the A's right now.
You know, first they left Los Angeles, they went to St. Louis, they went to a couple Super Bowls, they had rabid support, but there was obviously a gold mine waiting for them in Los Angeles, and they tanked so that they could appear to be closer to some of the terms that would allow a team to move under the NFL's bylaws. The NFL ultimately let them skirt the issue anyway, but that's wrong. And what the A's have done recently is wrong. If you're tanking like the Astros did and the Cubs to a lesser extent did, with a plan in mind to use it as a way to rise and contend, that's an entirely different thing.
And I think we can all understand and agree with that. I don't think you ever want to tank, but at least when it's with the intentions of, okay, we're going to rebound and regenerate right here, right now. Actually, maybe that's what Moneyball was, right? To rebound and regenerate and come back even stronger right here, where we are.
That obviously wasn't Fisher's intention here. What I would have hoped to do would be to field as good a team as possible.
I don't think that's happened.
To make a bad ballpark as hospitable as possible.
I don't think that's happened.
To create incentives for fans to come out, lower price tickets in the grandstand, that kind of thing, to show some kind of fan appreciation. And then ultimately, if you can't get a deal that's acceptable, be able to say with a straight face, we truly did everything we could. We wanted to stay here above all else.
And that's kind of the showing your math part of it, right? Like to put your hands up and say, here's A, B, C, D, here's 1, 2, 3, 4, put it all together. We tried. But to hear we tried without all of that tangible evidence right now, that's one of the hard things to digest.
And it became impossible. I don't know that Fisher can say that with a straight face to his fans. But again, I'm not saying I know all the ins and outs of it.
There goes one more disclaimer for the Bob Costas interview. Again, you should check out Foul Territory. I hope they don't mind me reusing this video, sharing the interview. Scott and company do a great job on that program on a pretty regular basis, the live stream and all the clips that come from it. They cover baseball, but again, I appreciate their interest and participation in this story, in the storyline regarding the A's and potential relocation. So there you have it from Bob Costas. And I know a lot of times I'll present a clip like this, I'll break it down. People will say, well, number one, you interject too much. Okay, well, that's the point of this. If you want to see the raw interview, go watch it on the Foul Territory channel. But a lot of people also say, yeah, you find people who are partial to Oakland, partial to the A's. You're intentionally finding these people who side with your opinions. How did I know Bob Costas was going to have those sentiments? I didn't. But obviously I'm passing this along. And so you made it here at the end of the video. You know I appreciate that. Thumbs up down below. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so I can see you next time.